Survivor Series this past weekend and Monday Night Raw this past Monday, which came just a few days later. The epic Monday Night Raw that Triple H said we were going to get. But before we get to that epic Monday Night Raw that you just can't miss, you got to watch all of it because it is going to be epic. We got to talk about this Survivor Series that was epic as well. I mean, it was the largest crowd ever for a Survivor Series, which clearly means that they put on the greatest Survivor Series that you can ever remember. And I will say, I didn't go to the Survivor Series. A little regretful that I didn't. I had an opportunity to essentially go, and it was one of those opportunities that came like a little bit too late. So it wasn't anything where it was money or I didn't have the time. It was a little mix of those things. And then when it came down to it, you're like, it's just kind of too late to check that off and to go do it. But and I do regret not going, and it's not because of the card, but because what gets me to go to these events, specifically like WrestleMania, which has always kind of started this stuff, is just the idea that that the stadium events become more than an event. If you go to an arena event or you go to a stadium event, it really turns it into these massive things. And now it's crazy because you can't really, on paper, really decipher the difference between Survivor Series and WrestleMania. I mean, it's like WrestleMania, I remember when it was at Safeco Field in like 2003 for WrestleMania 19, that was at a baseball stadium. And that was in front of like 45,000, 50,000. That was considered like enough. That was considered like, that's WrestleMania. Right? 50,000 people, because they did not run any other stadium shows. So if it was even in just like more than an arena, that was WrestleMania. Now, like, WrestleMania has to like top all of that because, stadium shows, SummerSlam stadium show, Rumble's stadium show. So WrestleMania, like, you actually have to have a good card to get in there to really decipher it from these other shows.
46,000 for this show.
So in order to decipher, yeah, exactly. So in order to decipher WrestleMania from the Survivor Series, you have to actually decipher it by the card, because on the surface, it's crazy. And we talked about this many times before. But the Survivor Series 2025, when it comes to production, when it comes to just the scope of the event, compared to like WrestleMania in the 90s, is like vastly different. It's hard to believe that like those are WrestleMania because of the fact that like WrestleMania, before it had fan access, before it had a superstore, before it had all the meet and greets. I mean, it was just like going to a Raw nowadays. You buy a ticket. It's Sunday, you go in, you watch 4 hours of wrestling at the arena, you go home. There was no like big pomp and circumstances. I mean, WrestleMania to the fans like us felt big, but to people like if you lived in Indianapolis or Chicago or wherever it was, you wouldn't really know the difference between WrestleMania being in town and just a typical TV show because they were produced like the same exact way. Similar to how we see, like AEW a lot of times, right? Like, I know their pay-per-views are a bigger deal now, but a couple years ago, they're running pay-per-views and Dynamites from the same arenas, so it's like hard to tell from a actual like scale perspective. But now every PLE, major PLE is in a stadium now. They're all big. They're all WrestleMania feel. They're all like you fly in on Friday and you get the whole weekend out of it. It's not just like you go to the event, you go home and that's it, right? The problem is though, and this is where we scale it back here, is that Survivor Series did not essentially deliver on the need for a 45,000 seater. It was to all intents and purposes, and most people I've seen, a pretty lackluster show. I mean, there was all those things and those rumors out there about they were putting all the who's going to show up because they had all sorts of like Stone Cold and all like testing out the Jumbotron they were doing, and people were posting it and saying like, oh, they're testing out the Jumbotron and they got the Rock's entrance, Stone Cold's entrance. Some of them are fake, some of them are real. But either way, none of them happened. And I was thinking maybe we'd have like Stone Cold or something come out just to announce the attendance. But at the end of the day, it was a pretty basic pay-per-view. I think the commercials, I know I've never been a huge anti-commercial person like a lot of people are, but even this one really felt heavy on the commercials, specifically being with only 4 matches. And just nothing about these war games. Like, it's not like the Rumble where you felt like there was stakes. I mean, I just didn't feel like it mattered.
It was a 2-hour show.
I mean, it was 3 hours with commercials, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but like if you take the commercials out, that's the point though. Is like there was a lot of, like you said, it was heavy on commercials. It was a 2-hour show, but it was a 3-hour event. You know what I mean?
I just feel like these War Games matches, they can be somewhat fun, But I think the reason why Survivor Series took so long to be a stadium show is just there's just nothing at stake here, right? After we just move on from Survivor Series, it's like nothing mattered. And we saw that essentially on Raw because obviously there was no carryover from the Survivor Series.
We don't know who the masked person
We
is.
don't know who the masked person is. They really didn't acknowledge it on Raw. Listen, I'm happy they didn't acknowledge it at Survivor Series because
Well, no, they did. They did. They technically did because like Paul Heyman and Adam Pearce had a little conversation. Adam Pearce essentially like accused Paul Heyman of like pulling that out of his hat, and then Paul Heyman's like, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, but we didn't get the reveal on Raw. We didn't get the
they're
who's he with, why is he?
They're saving it. They're saving it. That's what they're doing. They're saving it.
I get you. I'm glad they saved it from Survivor Series because, as we talked a little off air, I don't want everything to have to always be like immediate. I like that carryover. Back in the day, pay-per-views used to do that, right? You wouldn't just end the pay-per-view knowing you'd end the pay-per-view wanting to tune into Raw to learn more. I guess I was just expecting the reveal on Raw.
You know what I would love to see, and I hope this is how they drag it out with this mystery person.
Huh?
I would love to see that mystery person help Braun Breaker defeat CM Punk for the championship. And then after it happens, then we get the reveal.
I think, I would like, I just, now that they haven't revealed it, I guess maybe I do a little more of like, whose side is he on? Was he there because he just doesn't like CM Punk? Was he there because he's a part of the Vision? Because obviously at WarGames, right, some of those members aren't even a part of the Vision, right? So was he there just to help Drew McIntyre, but doesn't want to help, he just wants to help this party, not that party. Maybe he's in business for himself, that kind of thing. Maybe drag that out a little more.
The matches themselves were good though. Like,
they were
good.
fine, but there was nothing that like, the
cool spots.
I think we're at the end of, and I think we're already there, but I think this should really put a bow on our little WarGames experiment for a while, and we need to always be fresh. We need to do stuff. You think we can pull it out again next year?
Absolutely. I think it adds a little extra oomph to the traditional Survivor Series. And if you notice what they've done this year is they didn't have them all like in a cage, like waiting to see.
Well, I don't know how Brock Lesnar would fit in a cage. Yeah,
well, I know. Who wants to put him in a cage anyways? But I mean, everybody had their entrance, so like there was still the mystery of like you don't know who's coming out till their music hits, kind of a thing. Like that was cool. Mm-hmm. Like that was a different element than we're used to because in years past there has been like the cage part of it. And let's be honest, I think having this element to the Survivor Series tradition, I think it's cool. I think it's a nice revamp of the.
I would like to see at least some changes in this war game. Like we don't follow the same rules. First up, WarGames is one of the ones. It was never in WWE back in the day, so it took me until they brought it to WWE for me to understand it. Sure, I watched the WCW ones on the WWE network, but I wasn't fully understanding exactly like the stories going in and things like that and why they mattered. And for the most part, they are just put together. They are like the Royal Rumble. A lot of people out on the internet were saying that WarGames was always saved for like blood feuds, same as like cage matches or Hell in a Cell is. That's not true, obviously. That's not even possible because it's WarGames. It's like a team. There's no teams that ever hate any other teams.
But
I guess you could say that maybe with the bloodline, but since then teams.
Most of these WarGames were built up well, I felt like. Well enough.
I mean, they were just all-star games. They're all-star games. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm fine with it being like that.
There's the caveat, though. There's the caveat where, like, I'll start with the men's side of it. Like, yes, you had the Vision, which obviously you have Braun Breaker, you have Bronson Reed, and then you add in the different elements of Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul. Like you add those to the fire. And here's what I would say to that. The reason why it worked is on the other side was all the different members of that, I would say the all-star team, as you say, all had a problem with the Vision. And then the Vision countered and said, well, we don't have enough people to cover all the people that don't like us on the other side. Let's get some other heavy hitters that don't like the ones that we're facing, which made sense with Drew McIntyre being involved, with Logan Paul being involved. Like it all, to me, I thought it made sense.
I mean, it did okay. This wasn't like A lot of people were going into the Survivor Series thinking that, unlike in previous years when this is a lull time in WWE, this time of year, that this was going to like be the new Royal Rumble in the sense of this is going to be the kickoff. We're really excited. It's in a stadium. We're pretty amped. I was pretty excited for, the teams, thinking maybe not just the match itself, but again, like at the end, they did the whole fake with the credit on the screen. The show's over. But wait, hold on, Roman and Cody, and there was all these rumors that by the end of Survivor Series, we're going to know the main event for WrestleMania. Those were going out there because something's going to happen, and then nothing happened. Then Roman just walked away,
problem,
and Cody walked away.
The internet wrestling community pushes these like rumors around like it's going to be like real, and then it sets up people in a negative way because they're expecting way more than what they should expect because it's like all this stuff that's being fabricated out there.
Outside of the return of Liv Morgan and that whole segment, nothing happened at the Survivor Series that I thought, boy, I didn't see that coming, or I did see that coming and it was awesome. It was just the good women won, the faces won that, as they literally have every single year. The heels won, which was good, but at the same time didn't really do anything.
That John Cena Dominic Mysterio match delivered in all aspects.
That's the best part of the whole show, right? The Stephanie Vakir Nikki Bella match, I think when you have a 4-match card, it's difficult to have a match like that. I mean, they delivered for what they could, but I do think they could have had another match on the card, because when you have only a 4-match card, those 2 non-WarGames matches gotta be like world heavyweight title matches.
And to be fair, you're right.
20-minute, 30-minute matches.
I'll agree with you on that because I do say 3 out of the 4 matches fit the 4-match bill, like you just said. But you're right. The Stephanie Vakir and Nikki Bella, which to their credit, like you said, I agree with you on that. They did what they could. But let's be honest, it was still a good performance by Nikki Bella. I think because we already know what we get for Stephanie Vakir. Like that's automatic. But I will agree with you there. They could have probably added another match, maybe even had the tag titles or something on the line. Like I know AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. Maybe have something like that in there as well to kind of lengthen it up a little bit.
I think the Io Sky thing, it's getting a little drawn out when it comes to the women's match, right? And a lot of people have a little bad taste in their mouth about how like the weight of, and I mean weight as in time, of the women who are just standing around waiting for her to jump on her with the trash can. I mean, they could do that a little bit more organically.
Yeah, more smooth.
Yeah, it was just them just standing around waiting for her to jump, off. And she did the Swanton, which is cool. But again, this is kind of like very repetitive. And again, because like this isn't for the world title, this isn't like number 1 contenderships. It's just felt house showish. It felt like, oh, the good faces win again.
What you could have done, which would have made it even better, because you like to an extent where you obviously got to have safety involved. Where like obviously it took forever for Io to hit that move. Wouldn't it have been like something like Samoa Joe always does and just walks out of the way and then like the person falls? Like in that case, like Io Sky goes through a table or something, like then it would be a cooler spot.
I guess Io Sky could have been preparing herself while they were still fighting down below. And then, they could have said something and like, that's the indication, like time to go. Like they literally, like as she was putting the trash can over her head, they were already like waiting. You know what I mean? Like they could have still been fighting for a little bit. She could have put the trash can over her head.
It was choppy.
And something a little more succinct. Like they stop fighting as she's coming down, like more like
in sync. Being in the media field, it reminds me of like a bad video edit where like it just looks like choppy. And it was like, you could just tell how choppy it was. 100% with you on that.
So, I mean, the event overall it just didn't feel like the biggest Survivor. I mean, it's similar to how WrestleMania was this past year, right? It's a great way to end the year in the PLE category because WrestleMania, right, billed as the biggest WrestleMania of all time, the most expensive WrestleMania of all time, the WrestleMania which the ticket prices are deserve it because it's going to be huge. Are the first, full WrestleMania under, like the TKO. The
most profitable
show. They just literally couldn't hype up this WrestleMania in Las Vegas anymore from a perspective of business wise and how. I know it wasn't their first on Netflix. It was their first on Netflix, I guess, internationally, but it was just a lot of they really treated this like, I know WrestleMania 40 was in Philly, but we're treating this really big because this is going to be our, like Netflix, right? When they came on Netflix, they treated 2025 as they came onto Netflix. And this is, I don't want to say it's their first full year under TKO because it isn't, but it's just their first full year under TKO where they've got everything rolling and they're only going to just get stronger. And this WrestleMania and this SummerSlam, it's the first 2 nights. Everything's on Netflix now. That's huge in its own right. Like, and it just, at the end of the day, despite the fact that it was $30,000 to sit down low for WrestleMania and $1,000 to get in the door, it didn't have like, well, that was the greatest WrestleMania. Like, I've never seen anything like that. Triple H was, you'll never see anything like this. And it was just like, to a wrestling fan, it was a mid-level pay-per-view. And that Survivor Series, it's 45,000. It's in a stadium. It's the biggest Survivor Series by a long shot in attendance, right? And at the end of the day, you know, it's got the whole weekend of activities. At the end of the day, you're like, that could have been at the Allstate Arena in Chicago. Like, wasn't going to be a show that you show a non-wrestling fan that all of a sudden they're going to say, well, that's it. This is what's turning me. This is the show. I've never seen, you know, Triple H, you'll never see anything like this. And you're like, yeah, it's pretty much like the Survivor Series for the last couple of years. We've seen stuff like that. And as for the mystery man, a lot of people have already revealed who it is because if you zoom in on the butt of the mystery man, you'll recognize that butt anywhere. And Austin Theory's behind. As somebody says, I recognize those cheeks anywhere. I've seen on social media. So I guess that's a clue right there. But I mean, overall, like, it's fun that it's in a stadium. I will say this much. The WWE, and we've seen this also as well. I don't know if you saw this on social media as well. Stadiums are cool in theory because of all the stuff we're talking about and making WWE seem like a big deal. But they're just so hard to execute in the sense of like being a fan and going to them. And baseball stadiums, I think, may be the worst because of the layout. I don't know, and WWE is not going to spend any more money, but it's at the end of the day, it's just there's so many bad seats. And not just bad seats because you're far away, but just it's like they just have this idea of we're going to put this on in a stadium and we're really not going to think about what this is going to look like for the people who are here. And it's funny because like I've seen dumb wrestling fans, and I say that dumb, right? Who don't know anything, who've talked about like, you know, WWE, they should run like Michigan Stadium, or they should run Bristol Motor Speedway, or they should run one of these stadiums that has like 200,000 seat capacity. Cool. And it's like, are you dumb? Are you just dumb? Because like, listen, I like the idea that it's a bigger show for everyone too, but it's a wrestling ring at the end of the day, right? And listen, I love it to be, you know, in front of more eyeballs and feel like a bigger deal. But at the end of the day, it's a wrestling ring. And, you know, you can only put it in places, you know, like there's so many bad seats. Like I said, I don't know if you saw on social media, but like there was so many bad seats for the Survivor Series where they had like, they sold seats behind the dugout where the people entrance came out, which you'd think were good seats. And some got relocated and some were just told, watch the TV because the screen was like, they built up the screen too high to literally block their view of the ring. And then obviously these outdoor venues are the worst because they have all the pillars around the ring. And I say baseball stadiums are the worst because at least at a football field, it's perfect circular sight lines. So while there are obstructed seats, it's a little more easy to figure out where you'll be able to be centered. Yeah. While at a baseball stadium, it's like kind of crooked at second base in the pitcher's mound. So there's just a lot of like people who are like looking at poles. The ring isn't elevated, which is something I think that they should be doing. I think they did it a little bit at the Royal Rumble. At least they elevated the entranceway. But they need to be just realizing like, hey, how can you do this? And it might cost more money, and they're not going to do it because it costs more money. But how can you do this better? And I don't mean better as in fireworks. I don't mean better as in the stage for the television audience. I mean so that it looks easier for. I mean, there's a reason why. Right? We are here in Syracuse, New York, and you are the big like basketball fan, and you know that the basketball court at the Carrier Dome here in Syracuse is placed half. Right, we don't put it at 50-yard line for every show, right? Because they know that there would be so many bad seats.
They essentially put the seats or like the basketball court. I don't remember the exact specs, but it's pretty much, if you want to think about it, like, you know, for folks that don't know, like Carrier Dome, you know, it's like 45,000 seats now, 42, something like that now. but they don't put it in the middle. Like the court's not in the middle of the
It's like at the
field.
one end zone.
Yeah, they go the right one. They have one end zone, and then like they bring the seats, the seats are almost like retractable from the other end zone, and they bring it over, and it's like a makeshift like 30,000 seat venue.
Yeah, it's like a makeshift arena. And
exactly.
They have risers and things. And I think WWE, they just want to get more people in there. So they have less of those risers. Like, I don't know if you know, there wasn't really any risers, right? There's just, if you're on the floor, horrible, horrible. Like I think, and I said this before, the people who are sitting in the last rows on the floor at WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, the people who are sitting in the last rows, I know that they are going to their first ever stadium show because there is not a person that gets row 56 at WrestleMania on the floor and then shows back up to a stadium show again and does that again. That's a learning lesson. I did it one time. I got row 7 for a Monday Night Raw on the floor, on the opposite side of where they come out. And that was the one and only time that I've done that. It was like affordable. I said, I've never sat on the floor before. I can be in row 7. This sounds great. What's there? I'll spend the extra $50. It was like 30 to get in or like 70 for a floor seat. I'll spend 70 once in a lifetime or maybe not because it's awesome. It sucked. You're like on your tippy toes the whole time. You can only see like one side of the ring because again, the ring's not elevated. So if they're fighting on the entranceway, can't see that. I'm too low, so I can't look up at the scoreboard because I'm like too low. So it's a bad, and that was row 7. So imagine row 56, right? And especially too when there's a beam, right? There's a beam also too that's blocking your side of your row 56 on the corner. Those are people who go, oh, floor doesn't mean always, like it's same as anything else, right? Sounds good. Football, right? I've learned this in football. Just because it's a lower level seat doesn't mean it's good. There's a reason why the end zone seats that are like row 1 behind a field goal post are cheaper than upper deck seats that are at the 50-yard line because they sound good because you're closer. And then you realize, when they're on the other side of the field, I can't see nothing. You know what I mean?
To make a little transition here too, because obviously a lot of our listeners and viewers, they know, you and I, and we, a group of friends that we went down and we went to TNA. I know we're going to transition to TNA in a moment. Jared did a great job at TNA. We had like almost like 50-yard line seats for TNA. So
just elevated enough. Yeah.
Trust Jared. Just trust Jared on those. Jared knows the lay of the land. I trust Jared to get good seats anytime we go anywhere.
Better than floor seats that are all the way in the back where you're like on your tippy toes looking up.
What's going on?
Moving over to the Raw, and we talked about Survivor Series being at a C+, right, kind of pay-per-view, B maybe to some people. Raw just completely then took any momentum of Survivor Series and dropped it because, again, this epic Raw we have, which was supposed to be, again, we move on and start the road to the Royal Rumble. No CM Punk, no Roman Reigns, no Brock Lesnar, no Cody Rhodes.
But I will give CM Punk. I won't give CM Punk any shade. He lost his beloved dog. That was sad. I saw it.
Well, and I understand. Obviously, some people get the time off and things like that. I'm not saying all hands on deck, but I'm literally that's just one of the names that I'm mentioning. This follow up, right? This is the essential night after, 2 nights after Survivor Series. How are we going to follow this up, right? We had Roman Reigns looking at CM Punk, looking at Cody Rhodes. Like we got to have our heavy hitters. We can't just put that all in the Survivor Series and then just show up to Monday Night Raw like it's nothing.
Did you notice too? I don't know if you caught that on the Survivor Series broadcast. CM Punk, who I'm referring to, he did a little shout out to Larry. I don't know if you noticed that. So obviously, Larry, his beloved dog that passed away this week. I know he did a little instead of doing the clobbering time thing. You could tell he did a subtle little shout out to his beloved Larry. So I just wanted to I feel bad because having pets, they're part of the family. So I do. I saw that they lost Larry, him and AJ. So thinking of those guys, pets are.
It's what a weird world we live in now too. I mean, good. And I'll say you want to talk positive to WWE. I guess that's a big positive because think about it. It was 10 years ago, right? About 11 years ago now. CM Punk was let go from the WWE or left the WWE. And he talks about how he was given his pink slip essentially on his wedding day and how they were making him go overseas when he wasn't feeling good and all these negative things. And now here he's in the WWE, gets probably as much time off as he wants, gets the time off because his dog passed away. I can tell you what, 11 years ago, that wouldn't have been a thing. Like WWE, WWE essentially posted on their social media pages, essentially like where CM Punk is and why and how like they're with him. And it's just such a contrast you know what I mean? Like you can have time off for your dog. And that's probably why I'm glad, because that's why CM Punk is here. It's because if WWE was like that before, he probably would have never left. And he said that a few times.
Well, that's the other thing too. Like, and like obviously for a while, like, you know, I mean, when AEW first came out, like everybody thought like, all right, well, WWE sucks, Vince sucks, blah blah blah. If I'm not a top person, I'm gonna have to go to AEW because it's more friendly. Obviously that's changed, like you mentioned, even in the last handful of years, where a lot like Rusev even came out and said, I should say Lana came out, because obviously Lana and Rusev, they're an item, they're married and all that. She came out and said that Rusev is very happy to be back in WWE and took a pay cut because AEW actually offered him more money, but he wanted to come back to WWE and took a pay cut because he was excited to see what WWE was doing.
But we talk about this Monday Night Raw, and I just think, again, it was kind of a dud. It was supposed to be epic, right? Triple H said Raw is going to be epic this week. He said it. You know, yeah, I don't know why he had to say it. If I don't just let the product speak. Don't try to like put fake hype. Don't oversell it, especially when we're like, okay, well, we got to see what's going to happen. Like, I got to wait, and then
overselling, under delivering.
Then nothing is happening. Like, we're just wondering. I mean,
it was just an average show.
The Braun Breaker promo was good, right? We talked about him. He's going to go against CM Punk.
A+ promo for Breaker. That was, to me, that was his breakout moment as a on the mic. Like, hell of a job.
And then Jey Uso, right? He's on the show. Essentially,
he looks lost.
He's lost, right?
No.
And no talk about, again, we talk about Survivor Series having no stakes, right? Nobody was down after losing, right? Nobody came out after the Survivor Series and it was like really dejection. You know what I mean? It was just like, all right, well, back to life. Back to business for, the good guys and things like that, and the bad guys, and, nothing really taken from losing those matches, which that's
honestly,
why I said
I felt like Jey Uso, he took the loss on Raw worse than how things kind of played out, on the weekend before.
Yeah. Obviously that was tough. I do feel like we got to be going back. We got to be going to a Jey Uso heel turn coming up soon, right?
I think that's where we're going. I feel like it's because they've done this stuff with like Bayley, who kind of went dark and like had this crazy thing. They're almost doing it in a sense with Jey Uso. Not it's not going to be the same play. They're not going to play it out the same way. But I could see like the mental breakdown portion of it. Bayley's is a little more extreme than Jay's, but I could buy that and think, hey, maybe Jey Uso is going to the dark side.
I mean, either way, it was a pretty lackluster week. A lot of hype, a little bit of a lackluster, and I guess we've got like 9 weeks to the Royal Rumble. That's not even in North America, which is annoying in its own right. So we'll see. Obviously, we'll see. Not so much next week, because next week, right, is Royal Rumble. Not Royal Rumble. John Cena's last match, right? A lot of hype up there, but we'll see how WWE delivers after that fact. As we move towards Saturday's main event, where we only know one match. I know it's going to be NXT versus such and such. But hey, I know the tickets to go into Saturday's main event are like $400 to get in the door as of right now. And as of right now, we know sort of one match, and that's John Cena versus.
And that's TBA. All you need to do to sell tickets for $400, John Cena.
So hopefully WWE finds a way to get us a little more amped heading into the holiday season.